call this meeting to order, and I will ask Darlene to call the roll, please.
All right. Belvedere. Benicia. Concord.
Tim McGallion representing City Concord tonight.
Thanks, Tim. Contra Costa County. Corte Madera.
Present.
Danville.
Excuse me, Dave Fong. I'm the council member representing town of Danville.
Danville. El Cerrito.
Good evening, Gabe Quinto, Mayor Pro Tem and El Cerrito. Good to be back on MCE again.
Thank you. Fairfax. Lafayette.
Hey, Gina Dawson, council member for Lafayette.
Larkspur.
Kevin Haroff here.
County of Marin.
Katie Rice here.
Martinez.
Brianne Zorn, Martinez, council member here.
Moraga.
Risa Onoda, council member for Moraga.
Napa and all 5 Napa cities. Novato. Oakley. Pinole.
Councilor Devin Murphy here representing Pinole.
Pittsburgh.
Present. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Chanel. Pleasant Hill.
Here, Matt Wren, council member.
Thanks, Matt. Richmond.
Mayor Tom Buck.
Ross.
Here.
San Pablo.
Here, Patricia Ponce, city council member.
San Rafael.
Hi, Micah Llorens Gulari, council member for the city of San Rafael.
San Ramon.
Scott Perkins, San Ramon.
Sausalito and Mill Valley.
Here, Janelle Kelman, Vice Mayor Sausalito.
Solano County. Tiburon.
Hi, it's Holly Thier, Mayor of the town of Tiburon. Hi, everybody.
Hi, Holly. Vallejo.
This is John Basque with Solano County.
Walnut Creek.
This is Cindy Darling for Walnut Creek.
Thank you. Roll call complete.
Darlene Ford Green from San Anselmo, you skipped me.
Did I?
Yep.
So sorry, Ford.
And I think I missed Vallejo. This is Katie Meissner, City Council from the City of Vallejo.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Katie.
And Tom Campbell from Benicia. I had trouble getting on.
Thank you, Tom.
And Sally Wilkinson from Belvedere. I'm sorry I was late.
Thank you, everyone.
It's great to see so many new members.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is board announcements, and I actually have a question for staff, and I can't remember whether we've been doing it or not because we don't meet like every month. But does somebody do Zoom instructions to the public about how to be recognized and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I usually say a little bit in my CEO report, and I'm happy to say a few words now. So since we're at the very beginning, would you like me to do that?
Yeah, why don't you do that? You know, I think the earlier we do it, the better, because people can kind of think about what they're going to do and when they're going to do it.
Yeah, that sounds great. So all of the board members should be showing up here in person. And if you would like to raise your hand, there is a raise your hand function on the bottom of your screen. If you are having any trouble doing the virtual raising of your hand, it's okay to also put your hand up. And from time to time throughout the meeting, the chair will pause to see if there are questions of board members and then also members of the public. Members of the public also can use the raise hand function during public comment to make comments at that time. Just a reminder that if you're not speaking, it's really helpful to keep your mute button on, and that will minimize any feedback that sometimes will happen if there are too many mics on.
Especially if you have barking dogs.
Yes. especially barking dogs. Yes. Yeah. Anything that I might have missed that anyone wants to add on to those instructions?
Okay, are there any announcements from board members? Director Meisner?
Thank you, Director. So I just want to let folks know that the notifications for signing up for MCE have hit the mailboxes in the city of Vallejo. So it's very exciting. So thank you. And the MCE has been great with communication. And I did do an interview with the local Times Herald, and I hope I got all my facts straight. Anyway, I sent the link to Sebastian. So thank you, Mayor. Okay, any other announcements by board members? Okay, we'll move into public open time. This is an opportunity for the public to address any item that's on the consent calendar or any item that is not on our agenda tonight. If you want to address items on the agenda, wait till they come up, please. Darlene, do we have any members of the public who want to speak?
I see none, Tom.
Okay. So next item is new board member introductions, and I understand Dawn's gonna take care of that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go through the list of new board members so that they can have a few minutes to just say a couple of words, the community that you're representing, and why you chose to be on the MCE board. And is there anything else, Director Butt, that you'd like folks to say as we go through? All right. So let's start off with, I'm going to go in alphabetical order by jurisdiction. So first is the City of Belvedere, Director Wilkinson.
Thank you, Dawn. I don't feel that new anymore, but so I'm the Vice Mayor of the City of Belvedere. I'm honored to be on the board of Marine Clean Energy. My background's in finance, and this is a financial intermediary in many ways. So I'm hoping I can add value on that side. Thanks.
Wonderful. Welcome. Next, we have Director Campbell from the City of Benicia.
Well, I've been on the city council for 20 years and been the vice mayor 4 or 5 times. And they asked me to be on it. So here I am.
Great, welcome. And next we have from the town of Danville, Director David Fong.
Hi there. My name's Dave Fong. I'm a newly elected council member for the town of Danville, and been a resident of the town for over 40 years. And obviously we've made a commitment to go green and be much more energy efficient, and have a little bit of passion for that. And so I'm joining this group, and like to say thank you for inviting me and including me.
Welcome. Great. And next we have the City of El Cerrito, Director Gabriel Quinto.
Hi, Don. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Gabe Quinto. I was Mayor Greg Lyman's alternate for a few years back in 2015 to 2018. So it's great to be back on the board. I was also on I see a lot of familiar faces from Marin County, and then I was on the Sierra Club executive committee for many years until recently. So good to see everybody.
Great, welcome. And then we have Director Gina Dawson from the City of Lafayette.
Hello, I am a newly elected council member and have been working with Sustainable Lafayette for a little bit back when we moved into Lafayette 12 years ago. So definitely interested in clean energy and furthering it in Lafayette. And also have been working on projects with PG&E and safety of their infrastructure. So there's some good maybe synergies between, furthering what kind of partnership type things on making sure infrastructure is stable, and looking forward to that.
Wonderful, welcome. And next we have Director Katie Rice from the County of Marin.
Hey everyone, I'm really happy to be here. I've been
serving as Supervisor Sears, Director Sears alternate for several years, many years. I don't know how long it's been now. Really happy to be sitting here now with some years under my belt serving on the Board of Supervisors and also on the Air District. And I think there's actually a lot of really nice nexuses and fits with the Air District around climate and GHG reduction per MCE's work as well. And then just also have watched from the pre-gestational years of MCE what MCE has become and grown into since its very beginnings back in 2003, 2004, when Supervisor Hal Brown got a knock on his door from Rebecca Collins, look into AB 117 Marin County, let's be the first CCA. And that is how actually this entity got started way back when. So really happy to be here and really looking forward to getting to know all of you better and the work of MCE just that much better.
Great, welcome. Great to have you on board. And next we have Director Brianne Zorn from the City of Martinez.
Hi. Hard to follow Director Rice's experience with organization. I am a newly elected council member for District 3 of Martinez. My background is in botany and biology, and my day job, I'm an environmental scientist, environmental consultant. I'm interested in clean energy, and when the mayor opted to step down this season, he offered this position to me when I became elected. So I'm really looking forward to working and meeting all of you, hopefully in person one day, and for now, virtually via Zoom.
Wonderful, welcome. And next from the town of Moraga, we have Director Teresa Onoda.
Thank you, Dawn. I am delighted to be on this committee. I can tell there's so many things that I have to learn, and I can't wait. I was on council from 2014 to 2018. I was mayor in 2017, vice mayor 2018, and I pushed really hard for us to have MCE. And I was delighted. Dawn came to our town so many times, and I'm delighted that it finally happened. And, you know, like I said, I can't wait to learn all of the things that there's out there to learn about MCE. And thank you all for spending so much time for our planet. Clearly, we need it.
Wonderful. Thank you and welcome. And next from the city of Oakley, we have Director Aaron Meadows.
Good evening. I'm newly elected to the City Council of Oakley, lifelong resident. My background is in real estate and construction.
Wonderful. Welcome. And then we have Director Devin Murphy from the city of Pinole.
Thanks, Dawn. Good evening, everyone. My name is Devin Murphy. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm very excited to be here this evening and be in community with all of you moving forward. I think I know so many familiar faces, especially from folks across Contra Costa County, but I think there's one director specifically who takes the cake, and he's known me since I was 16 years old, and that's Director Vasquez out of Solano County. So good to see you, John.
Wow, wonderful. Welcome. Great. And next from the city of Pleasant Hill, we have Director, oh, I'm so sorry. There's a little bit of an echo there. The city of San Pablo, Director Patricia Pence.
Good evening, everyone. Patricia Ponce, representing the city of San Pablo. I am honored to be representing our city. I think clean energy is really important, and providing that to our community is essential. Thank you for having me here tonight, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot with the board. Thank you.
Wonderful, great to have you. And then from the city of San Rafael, we have Director Maika Lorenz. Oh, Gulati, sorry.
Complicated. Hi, everybody. Maika Lorenz Gulati. My pronouns are she and her. And I represent the city of San Rafael. And I was newly elected in November with district elections. So now I represent also District 1, which includes the canal. So I am very passionate about the environment. My day job, I'm the executive director of a nonprofit, Sly Ranch. doing environmental education. So I'm really excited to join this committee. Thank you.
Great. And then from the city of Sausalito, we have Director Janelle Kelman.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Janelle Kelman, newly elected council member for Sausalito. I'm the vice mayor. I spent 10 years on the planning commission. My background is as an environmental lawyer and land use lawyer. I actually spent 6 years in-house at Pacific Gas and Electric. So don't hold it against me, but I'll try to use it for good. And I'm extremely passionate about MCE and clean energy. And as a lifelong environmentalist, I couldn't be more excited to join you all tonight. So thank you for having me.
Wonderful. Great. And then from the town of Tiburon, we have Director Holly Thayer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Holly Thayer, I'm mayor of the town of Tiburon. I apologize, my connection is not that great, so my video is going in and out. I wanted to talk a little bit about how excited I am to be on this board. I helped the town of Tiburon go deep green. And in addition, probably something no one knows is that I actually worked with the SFPC prior to the time that Clean Power SF was set up. And we were just looking at community choice aggregation and how we could establish that for the city and county of San Francisco. And the people that I interviewed were the founders of Marin Clean Energy. So I feel a very deep bond with this board, and I look forward to getting to know more about everything that's happening, and looking forward to contribute as a director. Thank you.
Welcome. Wonderful. And then next from the city of Vallejo, we have Director Katie Meissner.
Hi, I'm Katie Meissner at City of Vallejo. I was first elected city council in 2013. We recently went to district elections, but I'm still at large. And I was, before on council, I was sitting in the audience back in 2004 when somebody from Marin Clean Energy presented the idea, and I was hooked back then. And so I was finally very happy to get a majority of the council, the unanimous council to support joining. And so we're now doing our rollout. So it's pretty exciting. So thank you.
Very exciting. Welcome. And then we have from the city of Walnut Creek, Director Cindy Darling.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. I was just elected to Walnut Creek in November. And before that, I worked for years for the state of California on environmental issues, water, hydropower, and trying to solve the Delta. And when I got elected to Walnut Creek City Council, I had to give up my volunteer assignment as the oversight chair for the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority. So I'm glad to be here because it's something that takes my environmental roots and gives me something to do while I'm on city council that meets that passion of mine.
Yeah, wonderful. Welcome. I wanted to check that are there any board members that I might have missed in that round table there? Okay. Well, a warm welcome to all of you. And the one last plug I want to put in before I turn it back to our chair, Tom Butt, is that later in the agenda, we will have an item to add new folks to our committees. We have 2 standing committees, as you've probably heard, and several ad hoc committees. And there's information in the packet on those. But when we get to that item, folks can nominate themselves for any of those committees. And we encourage folks to consider engaging in any of those that look interesting. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Director Butt.
Okay, well, I count 16 new people, and we want to welcome you to the best board that you'll ever serve on. And the next item is consent calendar. We only have 2 items on it tonight. Does anybody want to remove either one of them? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I'll move this consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, motion by Perkins, second by whom? By
Green.
By Green.
Yes.
Okay. We need to do a roll call vote, right, Darlene?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, stand by.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Aye.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
thank you. Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Moraga,
Yes.
County of Napa, Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Aye.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito, and
Yes.
Mill Valley. Thank you. Solano County,
Yes.
Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Roll call complete. Motion carried.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is addition of board members to committees.
And Director Butt, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm wondering if we could jump back up. I think we inadvertently skipped item 5, and I've got a few things to report, if that's okay.
I thought you did that. I thought, okay, you're absolutely right. Let's go back to item 5.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to let folks know that this is the first board meeting of the year for MCE, and so I've got a couple things to report that happened just at the end of 2020 and in January of 2021. MCE had 2 exciting solar projects that began development many years ago, and they've come to completion and began delivering to the grid. And the 2 projects are Desert Harvest. This is a 80 megawatt solar project in Riverside County. And then Little Bear, which is a 160 megawatt solar project in the city limits of Fresno. And this is MCE's largest solar project so far. So I wanted to make sure folks knew about those. Their press releases went out over the last couple of months. We've got some great photos available for those sites. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our staff. Next, I wanted to announce that MCE has received grant funds from the Marin Community Foundation for $375,000 to help support solar-powered battery storage systems on critical nonprofit facilities and low-income housing in Marin County. So we're very excited to be adding that to the energy storage resiliency program that we've been operating for the last year or so now. We're getting lots of interest at our critical facilities and with our vulnerable customers, and working to get batteries rolled out wherever we can. I wanted to let folks know that on the MCE website, we currently have a COVID-19 relief resources page. And so if you get questions from your constituents or want to direct people to our website, we have information that goes beyond energy, and it's really just to help folks who are struggling to pay bills or facing other challenges. The resources are broken down by county, and they include a lot of local resources, not just energy resources, along with state and federal resources. And I wanted to acknowledge our chair and vice chair for suggesting that we really augment these pages to have a lot of resources on them beyond just energy. And especially want to thank our vice chair, Chanel Preston Scales, who helped suggest quite a few of the local resources that we have on the Contra Costa County page. We're adding to this page continually, so if you're aware of resources not showing up that you want to add, let us know. There's one page really focused on residential customers, and then another one focused on small commercial customers and financial assistance for those customers. On the regulatory front, late last year, I wanted to let folks know that we successfully advocated at the California Public Utilities Commission to allow our vulnerable customers with past due bills to access state funding. The funds have been approved, and MCE was the first community choice aggregator to apply for the funds and begin advertising the support to our customers. And we've already had over 70 customers sign up for this. And we're going to be doing a lot more outreach in the coming months. You'll hear a bit more about some efforts that we have underway for targeted cost relief. And these will dovetail very nicely with this program that the CPUC has authorized. And then on the last thing I wanted to touch on is on the power resources side of MCE. We've been working a lot over the last few months to add more green reliability resources to our power supply mix. And I think this is especially timely to point out because of what we see happening in Texas and with the electrical grid being so heavily impacted by the storms there. We're seeing similar issues to what was experienced in California in August, where we had extreme heat events and we had some of our generators unable to deliver power to the grid and had to call for rolling blackouts. What is happening in Texas obviously is much more extreme, but the source of the problem is similar, weather impacting generators. And MCE is doing a lot to find more diverse resources, more technologies that are helping us to move away from reliability resources that are fossil based. And you'll hear more about that in the year ahead. We're spending a lot of time talking about this in our technical committee, and we have a couple of pilot projects that we should be able to announce in the next 6 months that will help with these sorts of issues. And that is it for my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have questions for Dawn?
Mayor Butt, may I add something?
Yeah.
This is David Kuhnhart from Corte Madera. Dawn rushed over very quickly the ironically named Little Bear project, which is 160 megawatts of solar in Fresno, big enough to serve 65,000 homes. But the additional mention that I wanted to make was that in addition to US Bank being tax equity investor in that, there's also international financing arranged from around the world. So by virtue of MCE as a rated entity committing to buy the clean output of that large solar facility, we have imported $330 million into the state of California to hire 500 people and make that giant project happen. I just wanted everybody to understand there are many dimensions that reach around the globe for the actions of MCE Clean Energy.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, now we'll move down to the addition of board members to committees. And
Director Butt, it looks like Director Murphy has a question.
Okay, go ahead.
It actually wasn't a question. I did want to just commend Don and the MCE staff on the development of the COVID-19 resources. A few weeks ago, I had a forum around small business support in Pinole, and I did share out two of those links. I think one link is for small businesses, another one is for households. So just want to thank you for that initiative. I found that the household one was particularly robust, and many of our small business owners who happen to be household homeowners really found that valuable. So thanks again. And I do have a few suggestions that I'm happy to send over via email as well.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, we'll move to addition of board members to committees, and obviously we have to rebuild some of our committees, so don't be shy. Dawn, are you taking this one?
Yeah, I'd like to give a few additions that have come in just over the last few days. So in your packet, there is a one-pager that is titled MCE Board Offices and Committees. It gives you a sense of who's currently on which committees. And we have at least one interested director for our executive committee, and that's Director Devin Murphy, listed here. And then on the technical committee, we have Director Katie Rice has expressed interest. Director Onoda has expressed interest, and also Director Murphy has expressed interest. So maybe we can start with the those two standing committees, and then I'd like to talk about the ad hoc committees next. We have a few additions on the ad hocs, but we need to reform those for the current year. But maybe we could start with the executive committee and see if there are other board members that would like to volunteer to serve on that committee beyond folks that are already on it and Director Murphy.
Dawn, you have I'm sorry, you have a raised hand, Director Thier.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, yes, I just had a quick question. If we're not the appointed director, my understanding is that we could still attend these meetings. Is that true for the newer board members that might want to get a flavor before they throw their hat in the ring?
Yes, absolutely. Any board member or alternate can attend any committee meeting anytime, whether you're a member or not. So that's a great way to get a feel for the committee if you're considering joining.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, and not only that, but the standing committees are open to the public. I'm not sure the ad hoc committees are they, Dawn?
No, those aren't.
So our two standing committees, the executive committee and technical committee, are open to the public and are conducted under Brown Act rules. So anybody can come, and any board member can come to the ad hoc committees. Okay. So did you want to continue talking about the committees, Dawn, or?
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's anyone else that would like to be added to the executive committee.
I would.
I see Gabe Quinto.
Gabe Quinto.
I mean, I'm interested, but it seems like we've got a bunch of Contra Costa folks already ahead of me.
I think that we have, we
one-
certainly have room, and there are no.
One more. I'm not
quotas.
nominating myself, but I would like to nominate Sally Wilkinson from Belvedere because of her combination of big heart and smart underwriting experienced head
For what committee?
For the executive committee.
I think she's already volunteered for it.
Already on it.
She's already on it.
Well, it was a
yes.
great nomination
So,
then. Sorry.
Good try.
So you got Gabe. You wanted to serve on the executive committee. Okay.
And was there someone else interested in the executive committee? There's a comment about too many Contra Costa people. I don't think that needs to be a barrier.
That's Cindy Darling. I mean,
okay. Okay, Director Darling, would you like to be added to the executive committee?
Yes.
Okay, great. And maybe now we can move on to the technical committee. So the new additions here would be Director Murphy, Rice, and Onoda. Is there anyone else that would like to join the technical committee? Director Kalman?
Yes, I'd be happy to offer my time for the technical committee.
Wonderful.
This is Gina Dawson. I think I'd like to volunteer as well.
Wonderful. Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay, great. And then I'll talk about the ad hoc committees briefly. So the ad hoc committees are, because they aren't standing, we don't always have ad hoc committees with these exact names, and there are some ad hocs that we had last year that we won't be having in 2021. But in 2021, we are going to have an ad hoc contracts committee. Late last year, Director Green volunteered to serve on that committee for 2021, but at that time we did not take other nominations, and we could certainly do that now. The ad hoc contracts committee is a committee that kind of pre-digests contracts that staff may be negotiating. We do an open season every year where we get bids in for power supply. And after shortlisting those bids, we often discuss those at the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee. The Ad Hoc Contracts Committee also is responsible for making recommendations to the Technical Committee to approve contracts. So that's a quick overview. Is there anyone who would be interested in joining?
I see Director Perkins.
Perkins.
Please.
Great,
I've
Director
been on the
Perkins.
Existing Committee, and I would enjoy continuing there.
Great. Okay.
So Dawn, this is Kevin Haroff. I'm not quite sure how this is getting teed up, but I'm happy to continue to participate.
Wonderful. Okay.
Dawn, I'm looking at the list and some names are in red. What does that mean?
Yeah.
I'm
Thanks
confused by that. Yeah.
Thanks for pointing that out. So we thought it could be helpful for reference to show who served on that committee last year, when that committee existed. So last year, Director Haroff and Perkins were part of the Ad Hoc Contracts.
Okay, so those are people from last year, and they have to re-sign up, right? Okay.
Yes, because it's an ad hoc, we have to start from scratch, so to speak.
We reappointed directors Haroff and Perkins for the Ad Hoc Committee along with Ford Green, right?
That's what I've got. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Contracts? Okay, and I should also point out that we can make additions to committees in the future. This isn't your only chance. So you can just let us know if you'd like to be added in the future. Although we do need to do it at a board meeting if it's a board committee. So
excuse me, I would be interested in the Contracts Committee. This is Holly Thier, Mayor of Tiburon.
Great.
Oh, good.
All right. Got it. Okay, anyone else before we move on? The next one is the Ad Hoc Audit Committee. The Audit Committee is responsible for meeting a couple of times, usually in the spring or early summer, to look at the MCE preliminary audit and kind of work through to finalization. It's not a huge time commitment, but during that time in the year, there are usually two meetings that are important, and I think this is it's a great opportunity to get involved on the financial side of MCE. So we have Sally Wilkinson, who has volunteered to be part of the 2021 committee, and then Director Kevin Haroff was a 2020 member. And so the question is, if you'd like to continue, Director Haroff?
I would like to continue. This is actually the most exciting committee that we have at MCE, so I'm happy.
Maybe you want to make a pitch for it.
No, it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it, and we need additional folks to join. So I'm happy to continue and encourage others to raise their hand.
Okay. Anyone else interested in the Ad Hoc Committee at this time?
We need at least one more person on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There he is.
Yeah, this is Dave Fong from town of Danville. I love the volunteer just because of what Kevin said.
Okay, there you go.
Good for you, Dave. I appreciate that.
Been recruited.
All right.
Okay, wonderful. And then the last one is our Ad Hoc Bonding Committee. And this is a committee that is not likely to continue after 2021, or maybe it will, but we have a kind of a heavy lift happening in 2021 where we're looking to set MCE up to issue bonds for the first time if the market cooperates. And in 2020, we had Kevin Haroff and Ford Green both participating. For 2021, we have Edie Barson and Sally Wilkinson who have volunteered. So I'll start by asking Director Haroff and Green, would you all both like to continue on the bonding committee?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Well, Ford jumped ahead, so that's fine. But this is Kevin. I would as well.
Great.
Okay. Anyone else interested in the Ad Hoc Bonding Committee? Okay, well, I'm going to go through the additions that I have down, make sure I haven't missed anyone, and then we should be able to take care of this all with one motion. What I have are the additions to the executive committee. It would include directors Murphy, Quinto, and Darling. Did I miss anyone for executive? Okay. For technical committee, the additions would be directors Murphy, Rice, Onoda, Kelman, and Dawson. Did I miss anyone? Okay. And then for the Ad Hoc Contracts Committee, the additions would be directors Haroff, Perkins, and Thier, with Director Green already on it. Did I miss anyone there? Okay, and for the Ad Hoc Audit Committee, we have Director Wilkinson already on it, and then we would be adding Directors Haroff and Fong. Did I miss anyone? Okay, and last of all, we've got the Ad Hoc Bonding Committee. Directors Beerson and Wilkinson already are on it, and we would be adding Directors Haroff and Green. Did I miss anyone?
Okay, that's a great start. I get it's unlikely, but I need to ask if there are any members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item. It looks like that's a no. Okay. Okay, so the next item is one of several that are going to be some very.
And Director Butt, I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I think we need a motion on this item.
Okay, all right. Are you moving the item, Director Perkins?
Yes, I'll move the appointments to the MCE board offices and committees as outlined by our CEO.
Second.
Second.
All right, who was the second?
Second. Kunhart Corte Madera is one of the seconds.
You're competing here. Let's get this straightened out a little bit.
All right, okay. So go ahead and call the roll, Darlene.
Belvedere,
Yes.
Benicia,
Yes.
Concord,
Yes.
Contra Costa County, Corte Madera,
Yes.
Danville,
Yes.
El Cerrito,
Yes.
Fairfax,
Yes.
Lafayette,
Yes.
Larkspur,
Yes.
County of Marin,
Yes.
Martinez,
Yes.
Moraga,
Yes.
County of Napa, Novato,
Yes.
Oakley,
Yes.
Pinole,
Yes.
Pittsburgh,
Yes.
Pleasant Hill,
Yes.
Richmond,
Yes.
Ross,
Yes.
San Anselmo,
Yes.
San Pablo,
Yes.
San Rafael,
Yes.
San Ramon,
Yes.
Sausalito and Mill Valley,
Yes.
Solano County,
Yes.
thanks, John, Tiburon,
Yes.
Vallejo,
Yes.
Walnut Creek.
Yes.
Motion moved, roll call complete.
Okay,
Motion carried.
now we're down to agenda item number 8. And this is the first of several items that are going to, we're going to have some very interesting presentations and discussions on. So item 8 is targeted customer cost relief.
Yeah, and so we are going to hear from a number of MCE's staff here, but to start us off, we have our Director of Public Affairs, Heather Shepard.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I hope my video holds out. If not, I may just stay with audio and take the video off, but good evening. I'm Heather Shepard, the Director of Public Affairs. I oversee our customer service, all of our community engagement, our outreach, and all of our marketing and public relations activities for MCE. What we wanted to share tonight is some information about some of our recent cost and cost relief messaging and customer engagement, as well as bring forward a proposal for discussion for some additional cost relief for our most vulnerable customers. So I will be sharing this presentation tonight with Zay Perrin and Melissa Giles, who are members of our public affairs team, as well as Justin Kudo from MCE's finance team. And I'll let them introduce themselves when they kick off their slides. You can go to the next slide, please. So there's just a couple things that we wanted to talk through tonight. We'll definitely want to leave time for questions and discussion and next steps. Melissa and Zay are going to take the lead on item 1 here and talk about some of the work that we're doing on the MCE Cares campaign and our targeted cost relief proposal. Justin's going to walk through then item number 2 on some recent exit fee charges called the Power Cost Indifferent Adjustment from PG&E and the impacts to our customers' bills. And then I'll wrap up with some messaging and the discussion and next steps. So I'll hand it over to Melissa.
Thank you, Heather. You can go to the next slide, please. So just to give a little bit of background myself, I am the manager of strategic marketing communications. I've been now with MCE for 3 months, roughly. I am new to the energy industry. My background's been in consumer marketing, branding, and live events. I've worked across a variety of sectors from, as I mentioned, consumer marketing, entertainment, technology, automotive. So it's really varied in terms of the sectors that I've worked in, and looking forward to bringing some of that expertise to this space. So I'll dive right into it with MCE Cares. The purpose, and I'm sorry, I cannot see my screen. So with MCE Cares, the purpose is it's a dual purpose. One, to raise general awareness around our mission and a sustainable future, and to communicate to customers and the community at large our programs and incentives that we offer for those in need. Our messaging points, as I mentioned, around sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion, workforce development, qualifying incentives and programs for vulnerable customers. Our target segments are single and multifamily, with the second target focus of multicultural and millennials, who make up the majority of our customer base in our communities. And as far as marketing tactics, we will be doing a combination of paid digital, social content, PR comms, radio streaming, potential partnerships with influencers, TBD on events, depending on when restrictions lift later in the year, but definitely looking at also at virtual events and direct mail and email. You could please go to the next slide. So this is just an overview of what our communications funnel would look like. At a high level, we'd focus on our mission, our values, climate change, sustainability, and community reinvestment, as well as workforce development. Then going more honed into our services, our products and services. From there, we'll focus more on practical information around energy savings, incentives, programs, tips, and tools. And then for more so for customers who might be in need, whether this messaging gets to the general consumer or the general community, whether they might be in need of some of these programs and services themselves. If not, the idea here is so that they communicate this information with their family, neighbors, and friends who might qualify for some of these incentives and cost relief programs. Now I'll pass it on to Zay on our team, and you can go to the next slide, please.
Thank you, Melissa. Hello, everyone. I'm Zay Perrin. I'm the manager of customer operations. So I am responsible for our gold standard of service across all entities for the agency, whether it's our call center, internally, externally, or by email. And prior to being with MCE, which I started in September of last year, I was responsible for the Danville area as far as small business relief and community engagement as the president and CEO of the Danville Area Chamber of Commerce. And prior to that, I spent just over a decade with Enterprise Rent-A-Car and Target in customer operations, both in growth as well as service and expansion. So when it comes to cost relief, when it comes to MCE Cares, I have a direct connection from the last 3 years in my engagement with the community, especially with our small businesses, and especially with the starting of COVID, and how do we do anything to support them and help them. So as we looked at our campaign of MCE Cares, we looked at how could we mitigate some of the impacts of higher energy costs because of COVID, also because of the COVID economy, and also the recent PG&E exit fee increases. So in doing that, we looked at our most vulnerable customers. And we looked at two segments, both our residential CareFera customers, which is a total population of 115,000. So we have 89,000 current CareFera customers. We're looking at getting engaged with an additional 9,000 new signups. And we know that there are approximately 17,000 CareFera customers that will be coming on board with our new communities of Pleasant Hill and Vallejo. And we also looked at our small commercial businesses who are being hit hard by COVID. And those are our rate carriers for A1, A1X, and B1. And that constitutes about 42,000 accounts. And when we looked at this, we looked at cost relief duration proposal of about 6 to 12 months. Next slide, please. So in doing this, we wanted to figure out, well, how are we going to get these customers enrolled? So first we looked at active enrollment. So this is where customers would have to take the action to enroll and sign up themselves. This allows us to have an opportunity to engage with our customers and truly see what the impacts are. Participation for an active enrollment is a little more difficult to get people to do it, even though it is a cost savings opportunity. So we're projecting that it would more than likely be no more than 50% through an active enrollment. We also looked at auto enrollment for targeted customers. Some customers may not realize that they're receiving the benefit, and customers don't have to do anything. So that means we could have a faster engagement as they would automatically be enrolled based on the target. It's also quicker implementation to relief. It would happen with the first bill cycle, and participation then would be 100%. Next slide, please. So in looking at the options, we came up with two. Both of these options are have a proposed start date of April 1st of 2021. And in looking at a 6 to 12 month plan, we came up with the recommendation of initial 6 months with the possibility of extending it to 9 months. That way we could watch and see what our participation rates are at, what the impact is, and also the changing volatility of COVID so that we could react and act accordingly based on those participation outcomes. So our concentration for CareFera customers, we're proposing a $10 per month bill credit. The participation would be a hybrid system of both targeted auto enrollment. So we would look at the top 10% of our most vulnerable CareFera customers, which is a population of 15,000. And we'd combine that with an active enrollment of the other 100,000 eligible participants. So we would expect a participation of about 50,000 enrolled customers. And that would be an investment per month of $650,000. Over the 6 month period, that'd be 3.9 million. And over the 9 month period, if we were to extend it, it would be 5.85 million. For our small business, we're proposing a 20% discount on electricity usage, which comes to be about $22 per month. That would be an active enrollment with an estimated participation of 50%, with 42,000 eligible customers that would have the enrollment at 21,000 for a monthly investment of 454,000. 6 month program would be 2.7 million, and 9 month program at just over $4 million. So our total estimated investment would be 1.1 million per month, 6.6 million for 6 months, and just about 10 million for the 9 months. Next slide, please. So in our second option, our second variant, we took out the auto enrollment for the CareFera customers. So then it would be an active enrollment, 100% active enrollment, and 50% participation of the eligible 115,000 person population would bring us to a participation of 57.5 thousand. which would be a per month investment of 575,000. 6 months would be 3.45 million, and 5 months would be almost 2 million. The small business would say the same, and that would bring us to 1.3 million total per month, 6.2 million for 6 months, and 9.3 for 9 months. Next slide, please. So what does that impact actually mean for our customers? So we have a slide here that shows our CareFera customers, their total average bill is $70 per month. The MCE Cares $10 bill credit, that would give them the adjusted bill after cost relief of $60, which is a 14% savings. And for our small commercial, the average bill is $350. The $22 credit or discount would then bring that down to $328, which is a savings total bill of 6%. Next slide, please. So I also wanted to highlight the discount programs, both older and newer, and some changes that have happened. So CareFera and medical baseline requirements have been eased during COVID. So highlighted by Care and Fera, you no longer have to use your income from the past. So it is based off of your income as of right now, which is a great benefit for any of those folks that have lost either time, monies, or jobs due to COVID. And proactively in December, MCE started reaching out to about 20,000 customers that were already behind on their bills to get them to enroll or encourage them to enroll in CareFera, and also take advantage of the low-income home energy assistance programs run by their respective counties. And I'm happy to say that we have brought in, or we've increased our CareFera population by just over 2,100 customers since January, so this calendar year. And that has a total of just over $2.36 million, $2.36 million in arrearage that is accompanied by those customers. Arrearage management program is funded by the CPUC, and it's paid by public purpose program dollars. Customers enrolled in CareFera are eligible to receive up to $8,000 in credit for past due amounts. And this program just began with PG&E on February 1st. The first week, we had 70 customers enrolled without any marketing outreach. We have 8,000 total customers that are eligible for the program. And in the second week, we received an additional 86 enrollments. So at this time, we have 156 customers that are already enrolled in AMP, in the AMP program. And sorry, I misspoke a little bit earlier. That 8,000 eligible customers in the AMP program constitute $2.36 million in current arrearage. So this program would help them to pay that amount. And then termination of the disconnection emergency order is actually changed. It was for April of 2021 and is now through June 2021. So that is it for my slides. I am very happy to introduce Justin Kudo from our finance team. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Zay. My name is Justin Kudo. My role is a subject matter expert here in our finance team as strategic analysis and rates manager. I've been here at MCE for 9 years now, a little over 9 years now, and I previously led MCE's customer care and billing operations. Before my time at MCE, I worked on renewable energy project entitlements, labor relations, and local renewable energy policies in the Greater Bay Area. So what I'm going to be covering here is a brief examination of the current costs paid by MCE households and the impacts of recent rate changes from PG&E. We're going to talk a little bit about rates, which are, of course, the prices per unit of electricity sold. It's worth noting that they're often broken down into many components. such as MCE's rates for electric generation, transmission and distribution rates, the infamous power charge and difference adjustment, or PCIA, and quite a few other rates. We'll also talk about the cost of service for our customers. That is the total amount that is paid on a typical month, inclusive of all of those rate components. MCE aims to have rates that are stable and competitive with PG&E. That is our stated goal in our rate setting policies. Our generation rates have essentially always been well below those of PG&E, but when you get the PCIA included in there, and to a lesser extent, another small fee PG&E calls the franchise fee, that often fills the gap in between MCE and PG&E's rates. At times, that's pushed the cost of MCE service above PG&E, but the majority of the time, MCE costs have been below PG&E cost of service. Nevertheless, PG&E's rate changes they're generally the largest factor that can increase the cost of electricity for our customers. Next slide. So in January, increases to PG&E's delivery rates and to the PCIA increased the typical monthly charges for an MCE household upward by about 10% from where they were in 2020. The delivery costs increased by about $6 a month on average. That increase is competitively neutral because there to delivery costs, customers who take service exclusively from PG&E receive that cost increase as well. But the increase to the PCIA is assessed to community choice aggregation and direct access customers only. Next slide. The PCIA went up by about a penny per kilowatt hour in January for most MCE customers. That's approximately the same as our deep green premium, and it comes out to about $5 per month, in addition to the PCIA that already existed prior to that increase. The increase had two key components. There was an annual increase of about ½ cent, and then there was an adder for what PG&E explained were under collections from certain customers in the previous year. That also means there's a positive note here, which is that more recent vintages, specifically unincorporated Solano County and the upcoming enrollment communities, are looking at a much lower PCIA, a more favorable rate scenario. And that's something that Heather will be summarizing and giving you the exact numbers on in the next couple slides. But the higher PCIA does affect MCE's competitiveness for the majority of our customers. It also has a secondary effect because PCI revenue is considered generation revenue by PG&E. That means that it pushes down their revenue requirement, and it also reduces the generation rates that are paid by PG&E customers. And that is a competitive issue for us. Next slide.
Justin, it's Kevin Haroff. I don't mean to interrupt the flow of your conversation, but when you talked about the adder a moment ago, what were you referring to?
So the PCIA is it's currently capped to go up no more than ½ cent per kilowatt hour per year. PG&E said that cap last year prevented them from raising the PCIA to be as high as it should have been last year to cover all their costs that would have otherwise been placed in the PCIA. So to make up for that shortfall, there is an adder that was placed on this year, which is assessed only to those customers, which is an additional, I believe, 0.7 cents or so on the PCIA just for the year.
And that's pursuant to CPUC direction, I assume.
Right. When the commission put the cap into place, they said that PG&E would essentially create a balancing account, and that if that account ever exceeded a certain threshold, which it did in 2020, that PG&E would be directed to collect the under collection in the next available period.
Justin,
that continues to be a kind of an offensive thing that is occurring to us, but I don't want to cut you off. Keep going.
I have a follow-up on the same topic. Justin, this is David Kuhnhart from Corte Madera. Justin, you said that roughly half a cent came from some addition to the MCE rate from accounts that PG&E is having trouble collecting. Is MCE in any way responsible for those difficulties?
I apologize if I might have phrased that incorrectly. Really, I think what I was trying to talk about was what Kevin and I just spoke about. Is there's the PCIA, and then there's a further adder on the PCIA for the majority of MCE's customers. That's really the only increase that we're talking about here. The other rate increase that PG&E had was an increase to their transmission and distribution charges, and that was part of a kind of a regularly scheduled increase. Next slide. So the upshot of this is that the cost of service with MCE is currently a premium of about 7% compared to the cost of PG&E service, with the exception of those 2019, 2020, 2021 PCI vintage customers, as we discussed on the previous slide. This delta is caused by a mix of the increased PCIA and the decreased PG&E generation rates. Some good news is that we expect some improvements on the scenario as we move through 2021. PG&E, in fact, has a rate increase coming in less than 2 weeks now, which is part of their implementation of their general rate case, and it would shrink the premium from about 7% down to about 6%. We're also expecting that PG&E will have a rate increase again in August associated with their wildfire expense memorandum account. As a result of that increase, we would see the gap be further reduced to about 4% in terms of the cost of service. So with that, I will turn it back over to Heather, who's going to speak a little bit about how we communicate these myriad rates and costs to our customers.
Justin,
Thank you.
before you go,
Thank you, Justin, very much for that. I appreciate it.
Justin, before you go, I've got a question.
Go ahead, Ford.
So you were talking about how PG&E allocates the PCIA and how it's allocated towards their generation cost or something like that. And what it sounded like, and what I'm trying to get clarification about, is that while the PCIA is making what our customers have to pay higher and is anti-competitive as to us, the way it's allocated to their generation, does that then kind of give them a second bite of the apple and an additional advantage? It sounded like that, but I didn't quite understand. Perhaps you could help me out.
Yeah, Ford, that's approximately correct. When our customers pay higher PCIA rates, it does result in PG&E's customers paying lower generation rates because of how that revenue is allocated.
Okay, so then
that creates a bigger problem for us when we have these PCIA increases. Yes.
Right. So what the impact of that is that our customers pay a higher rate, PG&E's customers pay a lower rate, and the consequence could be that we lose customers because of the application by PG&E of the PCIA to our customers' bills. Right?
That's a concern that certainly we're aware of and we'll look at. Fortunately, we haven't really seen a lot of change in customer participation when our rates have been higher or lower than PG&E's.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ford. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather on the next slide.
So hi again. I want to bring this back a little bit to some of our customer focused messaging. What you have here is a screenshot from our website. And so if you go and take a look at what does an average residential customer, what can they expect to see on their bill as an MCE customer and as compared to PG&E, this is what we've laid out here. And I just wanted to show that some of the ways that we are able to differentiate ourselves, obviously cost is important, but it's not the only factor. And when we go into new communities, we do not promise or commit that we will be cheaper from a total bill cost perspective. We're very transparent about our stable and competitive rates, but we really speak much more broadly about the value proposition and MCE's mission and what we bring to communities. So you'll see here, if you take just a quick scan at the top, our renewable content is more than double the equivalent PG&E basic product of 29%. As Justin mentioned, our electricity generation rates are always much less than PG&E. So for that customer, MCE is only represents about $43.50. And then what you see is you kind of build to the components of a total bill, you'll see some of those additional fees that our customers pay. And one of the changes that we did make is to show that as a range. And the reason for that is this fee does vary by the year in which you joined. And so we need to, we want to be transparent. And on the website, we've made it pretty easy for customers to go in and look up and see what their specific fee is for their community, depending on which year they've enrolled. And if you want to go to the next slide, I want to just show you the same presentation for our new communities. So this is just a little bit different. So for Pleasant Hill and Vallejo, because they have a more recent PCIA or exit fee vintage, their costs are much closer to parity when you look at a total bill perspective. And so for those communities, we're very specific. This is a dedicated webpage for these new communities. And that $13 is specific to them, to all of the residential customers, and they can see where things stack up. So just wanted to show some of the ways that we've been communicating cost to customers on our website. And you can go to the next slide, please. The other thing that I wanted to highlight here a little bit is just kind of going back to our value proposition. Cost is obviously important to customers, but it's not the only factor. I talked a little bit in the last slide just about our superior product compared to PG&E. That's becoming increasingly more important to a wider swath of customers. Climate change, clean energy, resiliency, these are more mainstream concerns, even in the 3 years since I started at MCE. And I think obviously some of the terrible weather events and PSPS and outages are only exacerbating that. So our broad and very deep mission around our community reinvestment, our superior energy product in terms of renewable energy, our leadership in meeting state renewable energy goals, those things are absolutely resonating with increasingly larger groups of customers. And we're continuing to highlight that in our messaging, our PR, and a lot of our thought leadership. You can go to the next slide. I've just got 2 slides and then we'll get to discussion and questions. But what I wanted to do is just talk a little bit about what we are doing when customers do have cost concern questions, right? So I don't want to, say that we don't have customers that are worried about costs. Obviously, this is an expensive area to live. Energy costs, have gone up on the PG&E side. And it's sometimes hard to know what is driving that. People are home more because of COVID, and so they have higher energy use at home. So some of the things that we're doing on the commercial side, so I'm going to start with that first, is we always start and reinforce our value proposition. And the good news is there for our top 250 customers, we've spent the last 2 years investing in one-on-one relationship management with them. Those customers represent 30% of our load. And that's really paying off. So we don't have to go into a lot of information about our value proposition. Those customers know what we stand for. They see how we're showing up in the community. And increasingly more of them are participating in additional MCE programs. So that's beyond just choosing whether they want to have light green service or deep green, but really taking a look at EV, energy storage, some of our energy efficiency programs, our strategic energy management, and those numbers are really growing. And that participation is often referred to as sort of, stickiness, but that engagement with customers really helps us weather, I believe, times like this when we're going to be more expensive. The other thing that also helps us, as I mentioned before, around our value proposition is a lot of these large energy users are sustainability leaders themselves, and they're very aligned with our mission and our clean energy leadership. Their employees work in communities with community choice energy programs. Employees want to see their companies lead in these areas, and we really can continue to be a strong partner. And I think there's a lot more that we can do down the road to align with these customers around that. Now, there's going to be some customers potentially during this time. We've had no opt-outs from our top 250 in 2020. We do have a few of those that are pretty price sensitive. They do have the option to go back to PG&E. The number one goal there is to give them the information, which is they can go back to PG&E right away. They'll pay a transition fee if they do that. They can opt to let us know and stay with MCE for another 6 months before they transition and stay on MCE rates. In either of those scenarios, they can't come back to MCE service for a year, and that is not a decision that we made. That's sort of how this was set up initially. But I think that one thing I want to share is that the relationship is primary. We want to give our customers choice. We will continue to be a good partner to them, whether they come back to us in a year or so, they stay or they leave. That's the number one element, is to kind of continue that trusted partnership. So we haven't had those conversations yet. We aren't seeing a lot of concerns on the large commercial side, but customers are worried, but we're talking to them, and we'll definitely keep the board updated in future meetings, but we're tracking opt-outs on a daily and weekly basis. And if we see any concerning trends, we'll definitely share that. And then you can go to the next slide. And this is just my last slide, just talking a little bit more on the consumer energy cost concern. So Dawn mentioned, thank you, Director Murphy, for the shout out on our new web pages and resources. We have always directed our customers to the lower their bill pages, and now we have some additional resources for non-energy financial assistance. So I hope that will continue to be helpful. We always let them know about MCE and what we stand for, and we have a chance to reintroduce the benefit of that. What we're hoping with the proposal before you tonight on the additional cost relief is that if our most vulnerable customers are calling more because of higher costs and other lingering economic woes, that we might have an additional offer to them with that cost relief program. So on the small commercial side, we can offer the $22 a month, and for care customers, we could offer a $10 bill credit. And that would hopefully prevent, if we did see any additional opt-outs or concerns, that we would have that as sort of another tool in our toolbox. And that's sort of the context for that. And then the same thing is if customers on the residential side still want to go back to PG&E, they still have those same choices. And we're always very transparent about what that process looks like and what their options are. So I'm going to end there. And I think the next slide, you can go to the next slide, please, is really just to kind of bring this back to the larger board here. We introduced this presentation at the last executive committee meeting, also as a discussion topic, and really want to get feedback from the board. What are thoughts about offering the targeted cost relief for our care and fair customers and our small commercial businesses? Do we want to consider doing it with a certain time period in mind, and how we might want to enroll and engage with those customers? And if there's interest, what some of the next steps look like. So I'm going to put myself on mute and open it up for questions and feedback.
Okay, so to be clear, this is not an action item tonight. It's open for discussion, and we'll come back in our March board meeting. So do we have any questions or comments from anyone?
Tom, I thought that was this is Kevin. That was a very helpful presentation, and I'm sorry, I'm losing my screen sharing here. So if somebody else wants to step in, I gotta get back to the screen here.
I saw another hand up, but I lost it
Yeah.
Director Holly Thayer and Director Rice.
Okay. Who was the first one?
Holly Thayer.
Hi, I had a quick question. So when a customer comes and a commercial customer says that they're suffering, especially now financially because of COVID, what is the customer service team doing and how is that customer handled?
So it really depends on the customer need and what is going on. So whether it's advising them on the resources that are available to them, helping them get on to a payment plan, whatever it is that we can do to help them, support them, and guide them, that's what we're here for, and that's what we do.
Director Rice.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Butts. A question, well, to a comment first. I feel like it should be, we should trigger the automatic as opposed to opt-in. But what I'm wondering about is, you know, folks' situations are different, and a $10 credit can mean something, and it can also mean more if it adds up. And I'm wondering if there was if there would be the ability to actually allow a customer to sort of bundle those $10 a month credits, if that's what it is, and then actually trigger them and use them when they need them. And the other piece of this I was thinking about is about usage and what you would expect for usage to be, you know, up and higher during winter months or higher during summer months, or if there's any trends, and therefore there may be a period when it could be predictable about when a customer's bill is higher than and more difficult to pay. And anyway, just so I was thinking about usage trends, and then if we could if it would make sense to allow customers to actually have some discretion on how they use that $10 credit, monthly credit, as it were.
Well, with it being a monthly credit, we could have that discussion. I think that it would inherently be kind of bundled because it would be there each month. So to that portion, I think we'd have to discuss that a little bit more. And I'm sorry, the second part of your question?
Well, just about trends in usage. We know, you know, every climate's a little bit different, and this Bay Area is very different. So I know my bills are always higher during the winter, but other people's bills are higher during the summer. But when does it make the most impact? And I think my comment around the $10 is, yes, it's something and it allows for relief that month, but it could be that someone could have a much harder time meeting their utility costs at some point in the near future, and they might be able to squeak by. I was trying to give a customer a little bit more discretion, and when that credit could be the most impactful and helpful for them.
Gotcha. Yeah, the energy usage will definitely be higher in the summer. And that was part of our impetus to see if we couldn't have it started in April, because then it would give time for folks to engage in it just before the summer months and going into the summer months. So that was part of the thought process on that.
Okay, Director Galati.
Yeah, thank you. My question was similar to Supervisor Rice. You know, with the $10 a month, it doesn't seem like a lot. And I was just wondering the same thing. I was thinking about the winter months where the bills can be much higher, maybe, where it could have like a bigger impact. And my other question was around, there are many clients in our area that they are really struggling to, you know, meet the ends at the end, and they are accumulating a lot of debt. So I was curious to see if have you considered maybe offering the discount to less people but more discounts.
Yeah, we could definitely take that into consideration. I can let you know that the feedback from our call center with the folks that are calling in a lot of that has to do with those more vulnerable customers. So we, in talking with them and recognizing their asks and the percentage of calls that are about higher rates or cost savings or payment concerns, we felt that the $10 per month credit would take care of the majority of those most vulnerable. But I definitely take
Yeah, and I was also thinking about the businesses as well, because not all businesses have been affected equally. So just looking at equity on how you are distributed the funds.
Director Meisner.
Thank you. So seeing that we are newly entering into the MCE, I'm a little bit, I just don't know how that's going to intersect. So you talked about, I think it was Zay, talked about the arrears, the customers that have arrears, so they're not paying their bills, obviously. So how would that work with new Vallejo customers coming on, leaving from PG&E? Is there any way, would MCE inherit that arrears, or how would that work?
So their arrearage and the arrearage management plan is managed by PG&E. So the arrearage that they had before being with MCE would still be part of PG&E. So the arrearage with us, they would have to be in arrears with MCE. Is that correct? I'm saying that correct, aren't I, Justin? Yeah. So they would basically become a new customer with us, but they would still be, if they have arrearage now, that arrearage can still be in the program through PG&E.
Okay, so they can still get relief.
Yes, 100%.
Okay. Let's see. And also, so these discount programs that are being offered, and sort of a similar question, how is that going to intersect with these new customers coming on? Will they just be treated the same? They're not going to be that familiar with MCE, so I'm a little bit, I mean, I think actually, I think it was Councilmember Rice that said, I think it might work better for them to just have it be automatic, but you might not even know those customers as well.
Well, we have identified those customers, so we know which customers have CareFera because that is through what's identified through PG&E. It's a PG&E program, so anybody that's in the program in PG&E, they're automatically in it with MCE. Mm-hmm. So we do know how many customers that is, and that's why we're able to figure out those numbers.
Okay, and then one last question, since I'm new to this. So this PCIA, I can't remember what the acronym was, but I guess it's a PG&E exit fee. And the exit fee, the way the terminology makes it sound like, oh, it's a one-time, but it's something they charge over time. It's for a forever thing.
It's an ongoing.
Go ahead, Justin.
I was going to say it's an ongoing charge that exists as long as the energy supplies, the energy contracts that PG&E had when that customer left service, as long as those contracts are active, the PCIA is charged for any above market costs in those contracts.
Wow, interesting. Anyway, doesn't seem fair, but thank you.
Director Fong.
Okay, I'm gonna first preface by saying what I'm gonna say is based on ignorance. So if I don't get it and it doesn't come out correctly, I apologize, but these are just kind of simple questions from my simple brain. The first is, I absolutely agree that our businesses are struggling and it's a bad time to increase rates. How they emerge is going to be different for each business. And whether a $10 credit makes sense today versus a $20 credit today, it's all driven by that business. And I think someone has already mentioned, we need to be very sensitive to the business and the dynamics of the fact that each business is going to emerge differently, and we need to be sensitive to how we best can support them. The second comment is, and I worry about this, and Zay, I think you get it because you and I have talked about this in the past. You know, if our rates are going up because we're now charging more, but that has an inverse effect on PG&E's rates because they go down. At some point, the lines are going to cross, which basically says that there's really no advantage being on an MCE program. Then we wake up one day and say, how do we recapture all these customers that decided to go back to PG&E? And as you know, the cost of recapturing a customer is substantially greater than what's been shared when you're acquiring a customer. So how do we come up with a program that avoids having to pay out higher costs later on because we've lost so many customers based on the fact that the lines of costs have crossed and the difference between us and PG&E become insignificant. Does that make sense? Do you get where I'm going with this?
I don't know if you guys can hear my, oops.
Yeah, we can hear you, Heather.
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay. I think there's a couple things I would just point out. MCE is not changing our rates, right? Our rates are our generation rates. MCE customers have an extra fee tacked onto their bill, which is reflected in the total cost. So, you know, as Justin pointed out, we are at a time where we're a little more and we're less competitive than we've been for sure. We have weathered being more expensive on a total bill percentage before without a lot of opt-outs. But we're not banking on that. And we've spent a lot of time watching our trends carefully. I mean, that's one of the reasons we've invested in the role that Zay is in. And we are looking at this daily and also on those top commercial customers, building those relationships. So we have really good, I think, bellwethers to see if we needed to do anything more significant than what we're proposing. But I don't believe, we do believe that we don't want to, you know, we're not proposing increasing our rates, but given the increase in those extra fees, what we're proposing, I think will allow us to maximize customer retention for the most vulnerable customers and give us a good customer engagement tool. If it turns out that that's not going to be sufficient, I think, you know, we'll come back and have that conversation and we can report on it. But, you know, this we feel like is really sort of the best, would be the strongest proposal at this time, given what we know historically. Justin, I don't know if you want to weigh in.
Yeah, that's thank you so much for bringing up the past precedent. We did have a period in 2016 where the majority of the year MCE rates were higher, or excuse me, the cost of service with MCE was higher than that of PG&E's. Nonetheless, we really didn't see any meaningful change in customer participation rates. We ended up the year with more customers than we started with that year. So we haven't seen a strong correlation between those small percentage differences in rates and the opt-out rates.
And I just wanted to touch on one other thing that you mentioned, Director Fong, and that is the kind of this idea of the crossing of the lines of, you know, PG&E and MCE. Really, it's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison, and there is no, you know, economic or market rule that would indicate that there's, you know, MCE generation costs have any bearing on PG&E's generation costs or vice versa. We are buying very different products. We have a very different portfolio from PG&E, and this exit fee that folks are paying is related to purchases that PG&E made long ago, in most cases, or at least before the customers departed. So PG&E is recouping their costs for prior contracts. That has nothing to do with any MCE contracts or MCE's generation providers. We're buying our own power separately, and as a public agency, we do tend to be able to keep our rates low, and as staff have noted, our generation rate has always been lower than PG&E's generation rate, and we don't expect there to be a point in the future where PG&E or MCE's generation rates are going to be shooting up for any reason. We tend to buy a lot of our power under long-term contracts with fixed prices, so we don't expect to see escalation in prices in the future. There, depending on where the market is, there may be some upswings and downswings, but for the most part, we do tend to have very stable rates, and we have since the beginning.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Director Zorn.
Hi, thank you. I just had two questions. The first one, I think they half answered. So I was curious as to how the most vulnerable customers, I believe one of the proposals that you presented was 10% most vulnerable would be automatically enrolled. And so I was wondering how those people are identified. It sounds like you said that that's the Care Fairer program that's already in existence. You already have these people identified. Does that mean that it's all inclusive for people who are struggling, or do you feel that there are other people out there that could potentially qualify that aren't being covered by the Care Fairer program?
So the Care Fairer program covers the majority. However, we've recognized that there are folks that now fall into the Care Fairer program or could be eligible that don't know it yet. And that's what I was alluding to in our marketing outreach that we started back in December to help identify those customers that could be eligible for Care Fairer and give them that information.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. And so then my follow-on question is, we're being asked to kind of discuss the pros and cons of auto-enrolling versus opting in. And you gave us a couple of different alternatives. So I was kind of wondering what the objective of the program is. Is it to support the people that might need it, in which case it seems like auto-enrolling is the best alternative, kind of as some of the other directors have mentioned, but what's the rationale for not just opting in everybody?
Well, it's a question of recognizing the benefit. So if it's auto-enrolled, then folks may not necessarily know that they're receiving the benefit. So that's one portion of it. The other side of it is folks possibly taking advantage of it. It's up for discussion and contention on either side.
Maybe another, just to add on, another thing to keep in mind is that there may be some customers that don't have as strong of a need. I think that our goal would be to make sure that the folks that really need it get it, and if they have to go through a step of requesting it or letting us know that they need it, then we can be more certain that there is a need there. If we are just applying this discount to customers that we think need it, we may end up giving out some of our funds to customers that don't need it, and have less to give out to customers who really do need it.
Yeah,
so.
thank you for that, Dawn, because that is exactly one of the reasons why it is active enrollment for our small businesses, because we recognize that there are some small businesses that have benefited during COVID, that have either sustained their business or even grown their business. So that is the reasoning why we didn't have the auto enrollment option for small businesses.
And can I just add one more point? I think you're going to be hearing more about our customer programs a little later on. Having them engage with us also gives us the chance to talk about the broad array of programs we offer, and it can be cost relief, and it could be energy efficiency support, maybe battery resiliency. There's a lot more that we're offering our communities, and I think that it gives us that chance to ask them, are they in a multi-unit dwelling? Are they interested in any EV charging? There's a lot more that we're doing, and having that touch point is really important to us as well, and it gives us some more information about what other things we're doing or not doing that could be supportive of in the future.
And it also gives us the opportunity to tell them to tell a friend or tell someone else that they may know that may be struggling at the same level that they are.
And one thing I want to underline that, in case it wasn't super clear, is that customers that have signed up for CARE are eligible for this arrearage management program that we've been talking about. Customers that aren't signed up for CARE aren't. And so we're thinking that by layering this benefit on to customers that have signed up for CARE is another reason, another impetus to get folks signed up. CARE is a program that is funded through state dollars. It doesn't come out of MCE's budget, but it's a really good program. And we want to really maximize the number of customers in our territory that are signed up. So that's another reason, having that touch point is a great way to remind folks to spread the word and try and get more people signed up for CARE.
Director Murphy.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just want to say this presentation was so much easier to digest the second time seeing it as opposed to the first time. So I want to thank the staff again for answering all these questions. I actually had a follow-up question to what I heard from, I think it was Director Meissner's question, which really, it stood out to me, and I thought I just wanted to ask, the PCIA fees, it sounds inequitable. Perhaps a word for it could be predatory. I'm wondering if there's anything that is being done or we can do specifically as council members that would eliminate this fee. Maybe I missed it. I just heard that and I'm thinking, wow, it sounds like, the analogy I think about is it sounds like someone like a monopoly market, and, ratepayers are basically being impacted because they only had one choice and now they have two choices. So now they are being impacted by their ability to have choice in the free market. So again, my question as a follow-up to what I heard from Director Meissner is there anything that we can do to push back against that fee, to eliminate that fee? What's possible?
Yeah, I'd like to respond to that if that's okay. The PCIA fee has been an issue at MCE since 2011. We started working on trying to address the way that it's calculated and the way that it's applied to customer bills. We worked very hard within a proceeding at the California Public Utilities Commission, the CPUC, and we had a big win actually in 2012 that cut the PCIA in half. We were able to prove that the charges weren't being calculated correctly, and if that hadn't happened, the fees would be a lot higher today. Unfortunately, there are still many other things that we think need to be addressed with the fee, and I think that the real problem with it is that it's set up so that every year the investor-owned utilities, in our case PG&E, is able to recoup any above market costs from their portfolio. So they are essentially exposed to zero risk forever because of this fee. And of course, community choice programs like MCE, we don't have the ability to do that. We buy power, and the value of what we purchased last year and the year before might change, but we don't get made whole for that. I think that the CPUC was, in establishing the PCIA fee, they were very interested in protecting what they call bundled ratepayers, the ratepayers that stayed with PG&E, and making sure that the departing customers are paying their fair share of those costs, which seems reasonable, on the face of it. But I think that the result has been that the bundled ratepayers are having zero risk, and they are being made whole every year, no matter where the market goes, at the expense of the departing customers. We have advocated heavily and spent a lot of resources at the Public Utilities Commission on this fee. It's probably, well, it is the number one issue that that has taken time and focus for CCAs at the CPUC. We've also engaged at the legislature around this issue, and I think the quick answer to your question is that there may be opportunities this year to engage on this issue. We are participating in a bill that will be making its way through the legislature that we're hoping will create some more fairness with this fee. And we're also engaged in a number of proceedings at the CPUC that are related to the PCIA and how it's impacted. I think that the last thing I'll say, at the risk of getting too in the weeds, is just that one of the sticking points with the PCIA, there was a proceeding several years ago that has not been fully implemented, that was set up to ensure that the investor-owned utilities, including PG&E, sold off any resources that they no longer need, so they wouldn't continue to remain in the portfolio and cause this kind of up and down cost impact. That still has not happened, and we have really expended every resource we can at the CPUC to get this to happen. And because it's not, we are engaging partners in the legislature to look at this issue. So there's certainly a lot that needs to be done to improve the way this fee is calculated and implemented. And we're working hard on it. We will keep you informed, and we will be calling on you if there is a need to engage at the legislature or the CPUC. The engagement of our board members in the past has been extremely valuable.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item before we leave? Director Quinto? Yes.
Hi, Tom. Gabe Quinto from El Cerrito. And I remember when Don and I spoke years ago dealing with the CPUC, including the Sierra Club, to attend these meetings. So through the years, we've been dealing with this. So we're still dealing with it. And I appreciate the history of that. And all the CCAs, CCSAs are going through that. I prefer the active enrollment for the 10% most vulnerable. And you look at how diverse our region is for MCE and the different counties. And I truly believe that, and especially for looking at Contra Costa in general, we do have a diverse area where this will help in many of our areas in Contra Costa County. So I do like the 6 months with options to extend for another 3 months, looking at what we're dealing with COVID. And, we don't know how long this is going to be. And most people think it's going to be, the rest of this year. So I like the 6 month with option to extend, and I appreciate this thorough presentation. And it's good to learn about what our vulnerable populations are going through, because it's in certain areas, and many of our cities don't have that, but a lot of our areas do, and I know in Contra Costa do. Thank you.
Director Meisner.
Thank you, Chair. So just a follow up, if I may, to Don. So I think we're all members of the League of Cities, and perhaps there can be some lobbying through them. And I can ask on my own to the folks that represent us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. We do frequently reach out to the League of Cities and other statewide organizations. So it's really helpful for us to know if you're involved in any groups like that, so that we can make sure we're going through the right channels.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? Is there anybody from the public signed up to speak on it?
No members of the public, Tom.
Okay, thank you.
Sally had her hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
I just had a quick question, which was, I don't know who had mentioned that historically there's been little, customers are not particularly price sensitive, but I was wondering with the changes in the demographic of the MCE customer base as to whether there'd been any work to see whether that sensitivity is going to increase or is expected to increase.
Well, we continue to monitor it, and more so now since COVID started. We were monitoring it more on a month to month basis with almost a month lag, and now we're really focused on it on a weekly basis. And we continue to see the same trends as before. Those that are most price sensitive are those that are hurting the most. So it has remained equal in that fact.
Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the next item, item 9. Fiscal 2020-21 operating fund budget update. And this is not an action item, it's a discussion. It'll come up later as an action item in a subsequent meeting.
Great, and we are going to hear from Garth Salisbury, who is our Director of Finance and Treasurer.
Thank you, Dawn. Can you all hear me okay? Yep, great. Yeah. So good evening, everyone. And again, as Dawn said, I'm the Director of Finance and the Treasurer for MCE. I've been with, for some of all of these new members and new commissioners. I've been with MCE for about 2 years, just in January of 2019. And my background is banking with large investment banks, primarily in the public utility sector. Had about 17 years with JP Morgan and 7 years with Royal Bank of Canada. Actually, Director Kuhnhart worked at RBC as well, was down the hall from me for a little while. So we crossed paths at that point for the first time. What we're going to talk about tonight is the operating fund budget update. And again, this is not an action item. It's really informational. And we will be coming back to the board next month for the next fiscal year's budget. So this gives you a little bit of a snapshot of kind of where we are in the current budget, and a little bit of foreshadowing about what next year's budget might look like. So the next slide, please. And one more. Okay, so there's a lot of numbers on this page, and don't worry about that. I'm going to blow up these different sections. But really to summarize, each year the board passes a budget that allows the staff to spend funds within the limits set forth in each one of those line items. And so this is an update to kind of tell you where we are in that process throughout the year. And this is reflective of actual results through November and projections for the rest of the fiscal year, which ends on March 31st. So, the nature of our business is such that we have a pretty good lag from the time we send out our bills and receive our revenues and sum up for each month and what our net is for each month. So there's a bit of a lag. We have received our December results, but we wanted to kind of be consistent with what we presented to the executive committee. And so December looked a little bit better than we thought. So our numbers now look to be a little bit better than we're going to talk about. But this, to summarize here, we expect to be about $10 million lower than originally anticipated in terms of our net position. And our net position is sort of our net after everything. We have our cost of our electricity, and then we take out our operating expenses, and that gives us our net operating income. After that, we have some non-operating revenues and expenses, and that then gets us to our net position, which is our net each year. And we add that each year cumulatively over the course of the existence of the organization. So we originally projected that we would add about $48 million to our bottom line in this current fiscal year. And what we expect now is that we're going to maybe about $10.8 million short of that to be about $37.2 million into the net this year. Next slide, please. So now we're going to look in a little more detail of some of these line items. So just as we were creating the budget for the current fiscal year, we brought it to the board in March of last year. And of course, that's just when COVID hit, when we really started to see the effects of the economic shutdown and, you know, shelter in place and so on. So we were really concerned, as you can imagine, about what's going to happen to MCE's revenues and what's going to happen to demand. And what we saw was a little bit surprising in that we did see, and we anticipated some pretty significant reductions in our commercial load. But what happened with everyone staying home and working from home is we saw sort of pretty much an offsetting increase in our residential load. So that worked out pretty well for us. And while we did expect to see a reduction in overall revenues, in fact, what we have seen is an increase in our electricity revenues. This has been as a result of, again, that shift from commercial to residential and more than offsetting that. But also, as was mentioned earlier, we had, of course, that large heat wave we had in August. And there was tremendous amount of cooling that people were doing in their homes. And so revenues were actually quite a bit higher than expected. One of the realizations we have seen, and we've talked about it a little bit already tonight, is in our uncollectible accounts. And you know, we did anticipate this a little bit. Normally we see about somewhere around 0.68% of uncollectibles, which is, you know, less than 1%, which is really very, very low, even for an essential service utility, excuse me, like MCE. We are now tracking at about 3 times that, or 2%. And so in terms of those uncollectibles, that's about $4 million more than we had originally anticipated. So all in, between additional revenue from electricity sales, but then reduced by uncollectible accounts, we expect to be sort of up by about $10 million from our budget. However, on the energy expense side, you know, we've seen now that our energy expenses are quite a bit more than anticipated. We've had higher resource adequacy costs. And probably most importantly was that effect in August when we had to purchase a lot of energy in the real-time markets, very, very expensive energy, was during that, you know, the brownout period. So again, was way more than we anticipated or budgeted for or hedged for, quite frankly. And so we saw much higher energy costs that month. And when we look at sort of the net effects of our electricity revenues and energy expenses, a lot of it we can really point to August, because that month was about a swing of about $10 million to our net. Next slide, please. So here's a closer look at the net energy revenue number. That was down by about $14 million overall. But then we also saw from an operating expense, you know, this operating expenses is salaries and benefits, our outside consultants, all of the general costs to operate the agency away from those energy expenses. So our operating expenses originally projected and budgeted to be about $31 million. And what we're seeing, in part because of COVID, but also because we can't execute in a lot of the programs we were trying to do, certainly in terms of our in-person visits and attendance at meetings and so on, but also in terms of, we have also delayed a number of pretty large software upgrades, primarily into the next fiscal year. So between that and not spending the amounts we had set aside for contingency, we do expect to be about $4 million under budget on the expense side for operating expenses. So that net gets us to about $10.2 million. On non-operating revenues, most of that is actually interest earnings. MCE has pretty substantial reserves, but one of the effects, again, of the economic shutdown was a dramatic reduction in interest rates. And that does affect, you know, our interest earnings. And so we're now projecting to be about $500,000 less in interest earnings over this period. So with all these offsetting factors, sort of net, we do now anticipate that, you know, our addition to our net position or our bottom line will be about $10.8 million lower than the original budget. which again is not a horrible outcome. But again, when we look at it, we can, all these things, we had some things that went better than expected, some things that ended up being, more costly to the organization. But net, it ends up being about $10.8 million. And quite frankly, in this COVID environment and with that heat wave that we saw, this is again a little disappointing, but really not a bad outcome given all that the whole local economy has been going through and what the organization has been going through in the current fiscal year. So that's our budget update, and I'm absolutely happy and willing to take any questions you might have.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
Garth,
could I see Director Dawson?
Hey, thank you very much. I just wanted to ask, what were the software upgrades that are being deferred, and basically are they being deferred from when do you anticipate?
Well, there's it is a CRM
Garth,
program.
you want me to?
Yeah, absolutely, Vic, please.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hi, Director Dawson. This is Vic Sargent. So previously, in the previous fiscal years, we were thinking about very large expenditures on the data warehouse and CRM projects, data-related projects that we thought we were going to invest in. But since then, we expanded MCE's staffing portfolio by bringing in an analytical department. And the staff in that department was able to find a significantly lower cost processes that we could use to get to the same conclusion. So our investment, not that we basically canceled this big project, but we did something similar to deliver the same product. And one of the biggest products we are concentrating on, as the board knows, is a customer interface product called CRM. I hope that helps answering your question.
Yes, thank you. That's great that you found an alternative too. Thank you.
Director Cunard.
Garth, could you show the slide that summarizes the aggregate margin or aggregate net position, please, if that's available?
For the fiscal year?
Aggregate cumulative, the change to net, the bottom line, not just the 1 year, but the aggregate.
Let's go
for the fiscal
forward.
year. Yeah, the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Net position. I think it was it was a little over 200.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, you can if you can freeze it right there. Yeah. So if you look down on the left side, just above the capital expenditures and interfund transfers, yes, that number. So originally the cumulative number was projected to be about 211, and we should end up somewhere around 200 million.
And so it is the case that the entire cost of the customer assistance program that was discussed in the last budget item is plus or minus 5% or 4% or so of that aggregate net position of $200 million of surplus. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. But I would note that would come out of next year's budget. So we wouldn't be funding that necessarily from reserves, Director Cunard, but we would be funding it sort of out of revenue. So it'll be a bill credit, right? So it comes out of revenue. So it would reduce next year's net revenue number by whatever that program will cost.
And the estimated add to next year is
somewhere around $40 million currently.
$40 million. So we're in very good shape going forward. That's what I just wanted to say.
Right, and I'm honest. So $40 million is before the program. So if the program costs 10, our net next year projected would be about 30. The addition to net.
So we're still adding 15% to that gross bottom line.
Yes, 15% to in addition to the existing net position. Yes.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Do you see anybody, Darlene?
I do not see any members of the public and no raised hands.
Okay, well, thank you. And we'll move to the next presentation, customer programs update.
Great, and we're going to be hearing from Alice Javier-Doughton, who is the Director of Customer Programs for MCE. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you, Dawn. Good evening, everyone. I'm not sure if my video is not working. I don't see myself on the screen, so I'm sorry about that if my video is off. But as Dawn said, my name is Alice Javier-Doughton. I'm the Director of Customer Programs here at MCE. I wanted to use this time tonight to provide a bit of a 2020 year wrap up and talk about some of the activity and accomplishments of our customer programs in this most unusual year that we just closed out. Next slide, please. So starting off with just a few highlights and some of our success stories from this last year. First off, we were able to, we saw a doubling of the energy efficiency savings in our non-residential energy efficiency programs between 2019 and 2020. And I'm going to go into more detail later about our energy efficiency programs. And one of kind of the themes you'll see is we have been launching a lot of new energy efficiency programs. And for some of the board members who are newer, our energy efficiency programs are funded almost entirely through the CPUC public purpose funds. And in late 2018, we received approval to expand our portfolio from somewhere around $2 million annually to upwards of $8 million annually. And we have been spending the last couple of years building out, designing those programs, building out those programs, rolling them out to customers, and we are now starting to see those savings be realized. So that's kind of the why when I go through the programs. There's a lot of new programs, and that's kind of why we've been rolling out these new programs over the last couple of years. Secondly, we exceeded our 3-year EV charging station goal. We just wrapped up our 3rd year. This is a MCE funded program. Through the charging station program, we had a goal of just over 1,000 ports. And currently we have over 1,100 ports either completed or under construction throughout our service area. Next, we exceeded our electrification goals under our low-income families and tenants pilot. This is a pilot specifically focused on affordable multifamily properties where we help with upgrades to switch over from gas to electric equipment and also to do energy efficiency work. Our goal through this program was 140 heat pumps installed. And we are at about 100, I'll provide more details later, we're about 144% of that goal now. We hit our goal and had a lot of very deserving properties come to us asking for assistance. And so we've gone a little bit beyond what our initial goal was there. I'm really excited about our workforce development program. This is also part of our energy efficiency funding from the CPUC, that sort of bucket of programs. This is a new program focused at leveling up our contractors who work through our energy efficiency programs, giving them skills to install electrification measures, really quality installations, and also linking them with graduates of local job training programs to provide paid internships and hopefully a nice pipeline into long-term employment for those graduates. And then lastly, we just released a new software tool called Navigator. The DER at the end of that stands for Distributed Energy Resources. And this is a tool, we developed this under a grant from the California Energy Commission. The software is designed to allow CCAs to visualize and utilize customer data to support distributed energy resource program and procurement planning. So for example, some of the distributed energy resources that you can model through this software include electric vehicle charging stations, batteries plus solar, and electrification measures. This is open source software, and we will also be hosting it for free, allowing for other CCA staff members throughout California so that they can try out this tool, and hopefully it will be a tool to sort of help all CCAs in California with their distributed energy resource planning. Next slide, please. So going a little bit more into the details of our programs, I want to start with our energy efficiency programs for businesses. First up, our energy efficiency for small business. This is a very turnkey program. We're really focused at small businesses that probably don't have the capacity to manage their electricity usage in a really involved way. So we make this program really easy and very low cost for them to participate. You can see we had a pretty good year in 2020. We went, compared to 2019, where we did 67 projects, around 1 million kWh in savings. In 2020, we did 76 projects, just over 1 million kWh in savings. And we paid out just over $267,000 in rebates to our customers who participated in that program. The next program is, again, one of these new programs that we launched, just this one very recently in December. And this program is more focused at our larger commercial customers who are probably engaging with their energy usage in a more sophisticated way. And the way this program works is we actually buy those energy efficiency savings from energy efficiency providers, who then in turn can use the funding that we're giving them to offset the cost for our customers. And by doing that, we pay based on metered energy savings, and we are able to pay out a higher rate for savings that occur at times of the day where it's harder for us to procure renewable energy, or it's more expensive for us to procure renewable energy. So, at those peak times, we'll actually pay more for energy efficiency than we will at other points in the day, maybe the middle of the day when we have a lot of solar. So again, we launched this in December 2020. I included a few logos here of some of our partners. We have 8 partners enrolled already, and we're evaluating around $3 million worth of energy efficiency projects. Next slide, please. Moving on to programs for our agricultural and industrial programs. This is a brand new area for us, again, with that increase in funding. We didn't previously have programs that we could offer our ag and industrial customers. And we launched a couple of new offerings in 2020. One of those is called our Strategic Energy Management Program. This is essentially a training program focused on operational savings and very low cost efficiency upgrades. We gather together a cohort of large agricultural or industrial customers. We pay them or compensate them to attend training to find those operational savings. And then we also compensate them for the measured savings that they achieve at the meter. We had 2 cohorts enroll in 2020. We are now measuring and kind of validating those savings. It's looking like around 1.2 million kWh from those customers and 90,000 therms of natural gas savings. Now, those customers will continue in the training program into 2021. And just based on those current enrollees, we're looking at least around 750,000 kWh savings in addition to what they've already done, and another 88,000 therms from those same customers. We also have more of a standard rebate program. So by a standard rebate program, I mean a program where we offer kind of X dollars in rebate for a particular measure being installed at a customer's facility. And I listed a couple examples of common measures that we incentivize, such as variable frequency drives for HVAC motors or pumps, LED lighting, efficient HVAC fan belts, economizers and refrigeration controls. This was again, it was a new program in 2020, and one that I don't think we have fully scratched the surface of the savings potential here. We saw around 88,000 kWh in savings, and this is going to be a big focus of ours in 2021, is enrolling more customers and getting more participation in this component of our agricultural and industrial programs. Next slide, please. Moving on to some of our energy efficiency programs for residential customers, starting with multifamily. We have, again, our standard program, and here by standard, I just mean that any multifamily property is eligible to participate in this program. This program, I'll say across the board, our residential programs were impacted more by COVID than we saw on the non-residential side. especially in the multifamily sector, where not only did the property manager have to be comfortable working with us and having contractors go into their property, we also often do work in tenant units. So the tenants also had to be comfortable with our presence, and it just was sort of a more complicated situation to navigate in terms of COVID safety. So you can see that in our numbers. Our program went, maybe a third of the electrical savings that we saw in 2019 and 2/3 of the natural gas savings that we saw in 2019. We do have a pipeline of projects for this program that we've maintained and stayed in touch with throughout 2020, and they will be ready to do work, when they are comfortable doing that. So hopefully we'll see sort of a bounce back here in this program in the future. The second program for our multifamily properties, I touched on this earlier, is our low-income families and tenants program. This is for affordable properties where the residents have to qualify based on certain income levels by qualifying, then the property receives additional incentives, more assistance with electrification measures. This is a pilot that we launched in 2017, also funded through the CPUC. It's scheduled to wrap up midway through 2021, and we've applied for full-fledged program status. And we expect to see a decision from the CPUC sometime this coming year on the status of that program application. And again, here, the electrification offering under this program was really popular. We had a lot of interest in it, and we served 204 units, which was 144% of our goal for that program. And then on the energy efficiency side, to date, we're at 77% of our goal at 259 units served, and we'll be continuing to work through our pipeline there until the pilot closes in the middle of 2021. Next slide, please. Moving on to energy efficiency for single family homes. We have two offerings here. One is an energy savings program targeted at middle income customers. The reason this is targeted at middle income customers is there are other programs out there, either run by PG&E or by the Bay Area Regional Energy Network, that focus on much lower income customers or non-income qualifying customers. And so we're sort of serving a particular niche here with this program. Again, COVID threw a loop into this program in that we launched in October with sort of a soft launch focused on smart thermostat installations. We were able to install 96 in 2019, and started off the year with those with the intent to expand to more deeper comprehensive retrofits. And when COVID hit, we pivoted the program to a kit delivery program. So instead of going in and doing retrofits in customers' homes, we were mailing them kits. Unfortunately, you can't really mail someone attic insulation and expect them to install it themselves. So we had to pivot to kind of lighter touch measures like faucet aerators and light bulbs. So we did keep the program going, and we also now have sort of a touch point with those customers to hopefully revisit their home and do some of the more intensive work in 2021. And you can see here we have a goal of doing deep retrofits in 400 homes in 2021, and we will continue to send out the kits, aiming to send out 1,000 of those in the coming year. Our second program is a behavioral program, also known as the Home Energy Report program, where we send reports to our customers detailing how they used energy, tips on how to save energy. This is a very sort of standard approach to energy efficiency programs that typically sees around 2% savings per treated customer in other areas. I think our timing was probably not great on this one, launching it right around the time that we went into shelter in place. And I know we've talked earlier about the increase in residential energy usage because of COVID-19 and shelter in place. And because of that, we aren't really seeing those savings. We're closer to 1/3 of a percentage point of savings currently. And we're just going to monitor this one because we think that we will start to see those savings materialize when usage kind of normalizes a bit. Next slide, please. So lastly, for energy efficiency, our workforce education and training program, So again, we have services for job seekers, including training programs and paid internships. For energy contractors working through our program, we do a variety of trainings, including ride-alongs where we go with that contractor to an installation. We send a trainer with them to watch as they install an electrification measure and provide tips and feedback and training on how to do that really well. And then we also do workshops. Next slide, please. So in 2020, we kicked off the year with 4 roundtable meetings to inform the design of this program. We focused those on contractors, job seekers, community-based organizations and educational partners. And then our last one was for local government staff. And that was where we gathered feedback on what the needs were for a program like this. On the contractor education side, we held 2 electrification workshops, and we have 5 more scheduled for the coming year. And we did 7 field meetings. This is also referred to as a ride-along. So these are those in-person trainings at job sites. We did have to pivot some of them to be virtual due to COVID. And then on the job seeker side, we've partnered with 3 training programs, College of Marin, Richmond Build, and Rising Sun. In some cases sponsoring their training program, and in other cases we have an agreement to provide internships to some graduates. Currently, there are 23 students in training who will be eligible for a paid 3-month internship when they graduate with one of the contractors working through our program. And we've also partnered with an organization called Strategic Energy Innovations to be the employer of record for those internships. And they also will support that job seeker for up to 1 year after their experience with that internship with assistance around finding permanent employment. Next slide, please. So I wanted to turn now to our electric vehicle programs, and I thought this was a great picture to kick us off and explain why it is so important that we get good charging infrastructure built throughout our service area. This is fortunately not a picture that was taken in one of our member communities. This is taken in Europe, but it was shared with me by one of our staff members. And if you can't sort of see what's going on here, this is an electric vehicle being charged by a portable gas generator, essentially converting the electric vehicle back to a gas vehicle. So, we really do not want to start seeing this situation as more of our customers purchase EVs. We want to make sure that those charging stations are available and in the right locations. Next slide, please. So with that said, our electric vehicle charging station program, since over the last 3 years that we've been active, we have installed 806 new charging ports throughout our service area. Kind of shown here what that's looked like quarter over quarter. I think the takeaway here is just, we launched our program 2018. We did a lot of work kind of getting customers into the pipeline and finding those sites, and we're starting to see the projects be constructed now. And you can see we have a lot more stations coming online throughout 2020 than we had seen previously. Next slide, please. And then, I mentioned we had the 800 completed, and we have an additional 300 under construction. This just shows for each of those, we're kind of tracking the estimated completion date for those. So you can see, going out through 2021, where we expect those additional, where and when really we expect those additional ports to come online. Next slide, please. Another component of our electric vehicle program is a rebate program for low-income customers. To date, we've had 83 low-income customers purchase an EV using MCE's rebate. And again, I showed kind of the graph here shows the quarter over quarter numbers in terms of those vehicle purchases. We've had over 1,000 customers fill out an interest form, so we are seeing a lot of interest. I think that the discrepancy between those two numbers just speaks to, beyond the monetary rebate, there's a lot of work to do of just educating people about, what is possible and does an electric vehicle fit with their needs and their life. So that's another component of the work we're doing. I also wanted to show this chart over time because we've had a lot of success with co-branded outreach. Towards the end of 2020, we did a first round of co-branded outreach, co-branded with 6 of our member cities. That resulted in a huge spike in interest and really helped get the awareness up. And we are currently underway with another round of co-branded outreach, as well as partnering with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District to co-market their rebate with our rebate. And we're aiming to get that number up to 200 vehicles purchased. Next slide, please. Within the EV program, some of the upcoming activities, I want to just congratulate Contra Costa County Transportation Authority for winning a $2.4 million CEC grant to implement their EV readiness blueprint. We supported on that application, and we're ready to support the accomplishment of that blueprint with our charging station program. We'll be working closely with them to roll out the plan for expanded charging stations within Contra Costa County, including more of a focus on underserved communities. And one of our strategies there that we are just rolling out is incorporating level 1 charging, which can be a lower cost option that can really fulfill the need and makes it more feasible for some properties where it's challenging to install more expensive charging. And then lastly, we're working on a smart charging pilot that would allow us to integrate directly with the customer's car or their charger to optimize charging. Again, focusing that charging on hours of the day where renewable energy is cheaper or more abundant, and avoiding charging during hours of the day where we have peaks or we see more expensive electricity. And through that, we would be able to reward our customers for their smart charging directly with our partner for that pilot. So we are looking forward to rolling that out this year as well. Next slide. And then lastly, this is just a bit of context on our budget. Our programs are funded through a variety of sources. You can see this is sort of an approximation of what we're looking for the next fiscal year in terms of the source of funding for our programs. You can see the largest share of our funding comes from the CPUC public purpose funds, mainly focused around energy efficiency. We have a contribution from the local programs development fund focused on the EV programs, some electrification programs, and income qualified solar. We have a grant from the CEC to support on transportation electrification, and then we also have a grant from the Marin Community Foundation that enables some of our green and healthy homes programs. And I believe that is the last slide. Yes, I'll leave it at that and happy to take any questions about our programs.
Tom, you're on mute.
Director Fall.
Yeah, I just have one question. Do you anticipate having grant monies available for the installation of EV charging stations for our communities?
Yeah, so we do already have some grant funds from the California Energy Commission that will support the EV electric vehicle programs. We also are really engaged in some activity at the CPUC around, they call it there the Transportation Electrification Framework. We've been partnering with other CCAs to make the case that CCAs should be eligible for funding similar to the IOUs through the CPUC for electric vehicle funding. We also have a few kind of pilot ideas we're interested in testing out, and we have our ear to the ground for potential funding opportunities for those, especially around like vehicle to grid integration, using buses as resiliency and backup batteries. So we will be kind of scanning and seeking grant opportunities to support those pilot ideas as well.
Super, thank you.
Director Kelman.
Yes, thank you. That was really excellent and quite informative. Thank you. Just had a question about the EV program, sort of a two-part question. Can you just confirm how many EVs do we have in our service area? And then when you refer to the number of ports, how many of those are level 2 charging?
So we have about 25,000 electric vehicles throughout the 4 counties in our service area. And for the ports, so the ports that were funded through our program, those are all level 2 right now. We just kind of refreshed our vendor list to add a few vendors who support level 1 charging. But to date, all of those ports have been level 2.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Any members of the public wish to speak on this?
There are
Chair,
no members of the public.
Chair, but this is Vic, and may I make a comment?
Of course.
Yeah, thank you, Alice, for the great presentation that her and her group, they do wonderful work. I just want to add that we are going to start working of moving the EE program into providing more benefit to us, even in resource adequacy and energy savings areas that, you know, holistically MCE looks at. So I just wanted to add that as additional information. Thank you.
Okay.
Tom, it's Kevin. Just to ask, just to follow on comment on Vic, and what do you have in mind there, actually?
Yeah, sure, Director Haroff. So, you know, we have all these programs, as you see, from EV charging to impacts on better usage of electricity. So as these programs are growing, can we zoom in the usage of these energy, you know, like EV charging? Where do we recommend and educate the customer to charge at better times than not to charge? Like you have heard the duck curve, right? Maybe we can push them, entice them to charge it at the belly of the duck level and shave that belly down, or other efficiency measures like electric water heaters and things like that to shift the load usage and impact our capacity.
Right, and those are all good things. I guess my question was more, how does that plug into our resource adequacy strategy?
Well,
I thought that's what you were, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we're heading. Like, for example, if we can use all the some or all of these EE programs that we have, that Alice did a great job of explaining.
Yeah,
in finding the maximum capacity value when MCE is peaks, like in this month of September, where our RA is calculated. We're gonna try to lower our capacity dependence at that time to maybe buy less RA if we can. So kind of.
Okay, that's kind of where I was going. I just wanted to make sure I understood the direction your comments were. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're ready for our next item, Black History Month.
Great, and we're going to hear from another member of our customer programs team on this item. Quay, I believe I'm handing it over to you. Are you with us?
Yes,
Great.
thank you very much, Valerie. Hello, everyone. I'm Quay Valerie. I've been at MCE for a little over 2 years now, and I'm the regulatory and reporting manager on the customer programs team. So pretty much responsible for all of the regulatory filings and reporting to the California Public Utilities Commission for MCE's ratepayer-funded energy efficiency programs. Before my time at MCE, I worked in a similar role at a consulting firm providing technical and regulatory support to CCAs and regional energy networks for about 3 years. And tonight, this February, myself, my co-presenter, Justin Marquez, and MCE wanted to take the time to recognize the celebration of Black History Month. So thank you, and next slide, please. Okay, so Black History Month started with Carter G. Woodson, known as the father of Black history. Carter G. Woodson organized Black History Month in 1926 at the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Woodson strongly believed that Black history, which others have tried to so diligently to erase, is a firm foundation for young Black Americans to build on in order to become productive citizens of our society. And then if you fast forward to 1976, President Gerald Ford officially recognized Black History Month, encouraging the public to seize the opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavor throughout our history. And the Black History theme for 2021 is the Black family, representation, identity, and diversity. Next slide, please. While the energy industry is notoriously white, MCE recognizes with gratitude the contributions of Lewis Latimer, a Black inventor who helped Edison invent the light bulb and shape the industry as we know it today. Latimer literally wrote the book on incandescent electric lighting, and he held several patents, including a patent for the electric lamp, and later patented the process for making carbon filaments for light bulbs. Next slide, please. In a letter he wrote in 1895 in support of the National Conference of Colored Men, I have faith to believe that the nation will respond to our plea for equality before the law, security under the law, and an opportunity by and through maintenance of the law to enjoy with our fellow citizens of all races and complexions the blessings guaranteed us under the Constitution. Next slide, please. One of MCE's core values is equity and environmental justice. And so we therefore owe a debt of gratitude to Dr. Robert Bullard for his lifetime work of environmental justice, advocacy, and national policy change. Dr. Bullard's enormous body of work demonstrated strong correlations between race and environmental pollution, first in North Carolina, then Texas, and later across the nation. And these are all well documented and widely known. His research provided the foundation for MCE's staff recent report in the UC Berkeley Law Journal, The Power of Power, Democratizing California's Energy Economy to align with environmental justice principles through community choice aggregation. Next slide, please. And here we have some general Bay Area Black population demographics. There are almost about 500,000 African Americans living in the Bay Area. And MCE serves 2 of the 3 Bay Area counties with the largest concentration of Black residents, Contra Costa and Solano. And lastly, before I pass it on to Justin, I wanted to talk a little bit about MCE's continued dedication to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We are supporting diverse voices through our blog and social media engagement. And this effort began last year in September with Hispanic Heritage Month. And we've been able to feature a total of 4 environmental leaders to date. So we are looking forward to featuring at least 1 other individual this month for Black History Month. which is our very own board director, Devin Murphy from Knoll. And all of these blogs are available on our website. And if any of you have diverse voices you'd like us to consider featuring, please let us know. We also have several individuals that we're planning to feature in March for Women's History Month. So that is it for my slides. And now I'll pass the mic to Justin Marquez. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, Quay. And good evening, everyone. And thank you to the chair, the vice chair, and the whole MCE board for holding space to celebrate Black History Month. As Quay said, my name is Justin Marquez. I use he, him pronouns, and I am MCE's Community Development Manager for our Napa as well as our West Contra Costa communities. I also organize MCE's Community Power Coalition, which is the powerhouse network of environmental and social justice, as well as sustainability advocates from throughout our 36 member communities. And I've been with MCE for almost 3.5 years. And prior to that was working with the city of El Cerrito as an AmeriCorps fellow. So I'm really excited to be here tonight. I was going to introduce Doria Robinson, who was the 2014 Charles F. McGlashan Award winner. But unfortunately, she was unable to join us this evening. She does send her regards and apologies. But I did want to keep this space and highlight the work. So I have a brief bio as well as some statistics from her work as the executive director of Urban Tilth. So Doria, who we would have featured tonight as our guest speaker, she's a third generation resident of Richmond, California. And like I said, she's the executive director of Urban Tilth, which is a Black-led nonprofit based in Richmond that aims to inspire, train local residents to cultivate agriculture, feed community, and restore relationships to the land in order to build a more sustainable food system within a just and healthier community. Certainly a lofty goal, and Doria is absolutely the leader to get that done. She is a dedicated food sovereignty, climate justice, and just transition activist, as well as the co-convener of the U.S. Food Sovereignty Alliance Western Region. She's also an active member of the Climate Justice Alliance and the Richmond Our Power Coalition. So in 2014, the year that she won our McGlashan Award, which honors the advocacy of leaders and honors the legacy of our founding board chair, Charles F. McGlashan. So back in 2014, Doria led the charge to develop Urban Tilth's 3-acre urban farm in Richmond. And in 2016, she relaunched the Farm to Table CSA, which is a social and entrepreneurial venture, which now serves hyper-local and sustainably grown produce to more than 440 West Contra Costa County families every single week. Most recently, she co-founded the Cooperation Richmond, which is a non-for-profit cooperative developer, and serves as a one-stop shop for the incubation, the education, training, mentorship, and capital support, which is required to create and convert and continue to develop successful cooperative enterprises in Richmond. And it's building community-controlled wealth by and for low-income communities and communities of color in Richmond whose wealth has been extracted. I also wanted to share some 2020 highlights from Urban Tilth because it's really incredible the work that they've been able to do for our community. In 2020, they were able to serve, like I said, over 440 families with boxes of weekly fresh produce. That totals more than 11,400 boxes of food. And 62,677 pounds of that food was produced and, 62,677 pounds of fresh produce were distributed to families in need. And of that 62,000 pounds, 10,725 were grown on recovered and restored urban lands in Richmond, cultivated by Richmond youth and Richmond families. She wanted me to share that she is proud that Urban Tilth continues to inspire Richmond youth and residents to restore land and to feed people healthy food. And that she hopes that the next generation of environmentalists of color will lead these efforts in the future. So I was really excited to have Doria speak to you, and she again sends her regards. But we also highlighted Doria and her work on our most recent blog post. So in the same series that Quay was mentioning before, I encourage you to check out more of what Doria has done with Urban Tilth and for our communities. And I believe that is the next slide. Our guest speaker, there's Doria. This is a photo that she shared with us. And it's incredible, again, the activism and leadership that she's demonstrated in Richmond on behalf of our communities. Next slide, please. Excellent. So these are some of the publicly available resources that were used for this presentation. Again, at the very top, a link to the blog post that highlights Doria and her work with Urban Tilth. Next slide, please. And finally, yeah, just wanted to say thank you to Quay for presenting, as well as to the rest of MCE's DEI Tiger team, which helped put together this presentation. Thank you again for celebrating Black History Month during your board meeting.
Okay, thank you for that great presentation, and it's always good to see one of our Richmond residents highlighted. Does anybody have any questions or comments following that?
Tom, Kevin, just Haroff from Larkspur, just very quickly. I just want to echo your comments. I thought that was a terrific presentation. Bringing a diverse constituency in our communities into our process is very important. So I appreciate it very much.
Chanel, I see your hand up.
Yes, I also just want to thank Quay and Justin for the wonderful presentation, and also picking Urban Tilt. If any of you get a chance to go out to North Richmond, it's a wonderful site. Not only that, it's educating the community on how to garden and plant and provide food for themselves. And so I have had the opportunity to go out there a few times, and when I get a chance to, I'll shoot Doria an email just to congratulate her. So I just want to thank MCE. Thank you.
Director Murphy.
Wow, what an incredible presentation. I just want to thank you all so much.
Are you still there?
I am still here. I'm so sorry.
Okay, that's
I had to switch off because I had to take my puppy to do puppy duties. But I just want to say thank you so much for such a moving presentation. That was so wonderful to learn a bit of history. And I just wanted to take a time to also say that here in the city of Pinole, for the first time in our 100-year history, we took a privilege to have a proclamation to recognize Black History Month. So this is just so moving and so necessary and so critical. And I just want to thank you all. I am so moved by this presentation. Thank you so much for your work. I also want to just acknowledge our, Madam Vice Chair Chanel Scales-Preston for your work as our Vice Chair, but also in Congressman DeSanye's office and as a City Council member. You are truly a trailblazer in so many ways. And if I can just say, you are Black history, and you are truly such a gift to so many of us before MCE board, but certainly during my time here and as a new director, you've really reached out. So I just wanted to shout you out as well and just say thank you. But again, moving presentation. Thank you for including this in the agenda. This was wonderful. So thank you all again.
And thank you. Anyone else? Are there any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Darlene? None? Okay. Director Anata.
Thank you. I haven't said much. In fact, I haven't said anything during this meeting, and it's been so interesting. And this to me has been the highlight. It just shows how much one person can do. And all of the people here are leaders. And that MCE would highlight this says a whole lot about who you are. And so thank you very much.
Director Thier.
Yes, I just wanted to echo my fellow directors' comments and accolades. This organization's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion is great and commendable. And that was a fantastic presentation. And I just wanted to thank the presenters.
Okay, anyone else on this? Thank you. That brings us to our last item, board matters and staff matters. Anyone have anything they want to bring up at this time? Staff or board members? Zay, go ahead. You got your hand up?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank Quay really quickly for representing myself as our only Black employee with MCE, as well as everyone else. I think it takes a lot of courage to stand up and present in front of all of you. I know that it's much for me, and I'm twice her elder, but I think she did an eloquent job of representing our Black communities, as well as us Black employees. Sorry, but
Hear, hear. Thank you. Yep, hear, hear.
Anyone else? I don't see any hands up. I believe that we might be ready to adjourn. I'm going to count to 3, and if I don't see a hand up, going once, going twice. Thank you. We are adjourned. It's been a great meeting, and it's so great to see so many new board members seated. I counted 16, if I'm correct. So that's a lot of new people, a lot of new faces, and a lot of you appear to be really engaged already. And we look forward to many more meetings like this in the future. So with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.